What's going on, guys? It's Sloppy Saturdays back at you guys with some breaking news. And today we are going over Nico Lava being done at Tennessee. Tennessee says they are done with him. If nobody knows the situation, we're going to go over it. It is probably the first of this situation we have ever seen in college sports. Nico Lava didn't like what he was getting paid in NIL money. He wanted to rework his NIL deal. I believe his deal was around $2.4 million. Don't quote me on that. But as a result, he ends up sitting out for multiple practices. He sits out for multiple practices, and I think Nico Lava and his camp really thought they were going to get a reworked deal. And instead, Josh Heupel comes out and says they are done with him at Tennessee. Nobody is bigger than the program. It is going to be very difficult to assess the situation, like we said, as it is the first of its kind. But let's get right into it. Now, to start off with Josh Heupel's quote, I 100% agree with him. It's so hard to compare this NIL money now to pro sports because the landscape is just drastically different. I believe no player should be bigger than the program in college sports for a couple of significant reasons. One, when it comes to a money standpoint, the money isn't even close compared to pro sports. Any coach in a big program gets more than the player. The player should not be running a program like we've seen star players do in professional sports. Not only that, your length in a college sport, if you're an NFL type player, realistically, is 3 years max for college football. If you're an NFL player, you're probably only staying 3 to 4 years max. These players don't turn around programs and organizations like an NFL player can. Like, let's be realistic. Tennessee is going to be one of the biggest programs in the country with or without Nico Lava. He's not turning around that program in 3 years. Also, another side note on Nico Lava, as hyped as he was, he had a very underwhelming season. Most people who watch Tennessee will argue that Dylan Sampson, the running back, was really the engine of that offense. It wasn't Nico Lava. He struggled heavily, in my opinion. And again, just really as a 5-star 6'6" prospect, he did not have the season that everybody thought he was going to have. Don't get me wrong, he didn't play bad at all, but he didn't have the season we all thought he was going to have. I really think when Nico's camp was reworking his deal, they thought they had Tennessee on the ropes, and they thought they were going to get a reworked NIL deal. Little did they know, it completely backfired in their favor. And now for Nico Lava, I think this was a horrible decision for him in his camp. I think him in his camp really had to look at the bigger picture. Like, let's think about it. For a guy like Nico Lava, it's great what NIL is set up to do. It's set up to give college athletes money that they deserve, obviously, because when you look at the programs and how much they're making, they definitely deserve a cut of it, and to get their name, image, and likeness, be able to brand that. But again, it's all about the big picture when you're talking about Nico Lava, a guy that for the longest time was set out to be an NFL starting quarterback one day. Now you're setting an example to NFL teams and other college programs as well that you're greedy, that you're just there for the NIL money. And this is not an example you should be setting, especially when the money isn't even close. You look at NIL money. What are we looking at? $2, $3, $4 million max for Nico Lava. He's an NFL starting quarterback. One day he can be making $50 million. You don't want to stray away your image for these NFL teams. And I think that's exactly what he did. Now he also puts himself in a tough scenario as well. I get it, Nico Lava, realistically, when it comes to who you would rather have in a nutshell, he could start for a multitude of power conference teams in college football. But now you really got to think, is a team going to really want to pay him a bag, bring him in super late, and it could only be for 1 year? Not only that, he can't go to an SEC school anymore, so that takes out the biggest conference now he can't go to because they're already in spring ball. He can't transfer in conference. It has to be in a different conference as well. So the market for Nico Lava, I think, is going to be very slim. And I think for a year that he could really be pushing towards the NFL to get, $1 million extra when he could possibly be an NFL starting quarterback, he really messed up here. Now, don't get me wrong, there is going to be a market for Nico Lava. Again, we're talking about a 5-star 6'6" quarterback. Again, he could be an upgrade for a multitude of teams. But the issue is with this, like I said, college football has way more turnover than the NFL. To bring somebody in already in the middle of spring ball, they have to be a significant upgrade. Not only that, they have to be a significant enough upgrade that you're willing to pay him about $3 million as well in NIL money. So you have to have a team out of conference that he has to go to that he figures is, on the same playing field as a Tennessee to up his draft stock. Not only that, they have to be interested in him. They have to have the money for him as well. Now, there are two teams that I really like for Nico Emeagwala to go to. The first team is Texas Tech. Now, Texas Tech right now, I don't think they're on the same playing field as a Tennessee. Again, I think they're a little bit below them, but they have a great offensive line. They have some weapons there, and they have a boatload of money to spend, and it's out of the SEC. So I really like that one. And I think what would be a home run for Nico Emeagwala, if they were to pay him, they have a ton of money to pay him, would be Notre Dame. We obviously know the situation, them being out of conference, how much money they made off the college football playoffs this year. Again, I think it would be a significant upgrade over their quarterback room. And again, Notre Dame might even be a step above Tennessee going into this year as well. Those would be the two teams that I think could have significant interest in Nico Emeagwala. Again, it is going to be very tough, though, because you have to pay Nico Emeagwala a lot, obviously. And not only that, you have to be willing to bring him in spring ball. Let's be realistic. These coaches, these programs already have their mind set on the quarterbacks they had in their room and how they're going to go forward in this offseason. To bring in a Nico Emeagwala could take in a ton of risk. Now, it's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out. Like I said, this was the first time we've ever really seen a holdout in college football, and I think it completely backfired for Nico Emeagwala. I think Tennessee did the complete right thing, letting him go. I think there's going to be a little bit of a small market for people think as talented as Nico Emeagwala is, you're only getting him for 1 or 2 years. And I think a lot of teams are really going to set a precedent. Like, we're not going to let a player run our program. The program is way bigger than the player. Like I said, it's so different than a professional sports base. Like, people really have to keep that in mind. Like I said, these programs don't get turned around by a player. These powerhouse programs that have been powerhouse programs for 20 years, a player is not going to run that program. Again, a coach that gets paid way more than a player in college football, not going to let that happen like they do in the NFL. You know why? Because top NFL players get played 3-4 times the amount as an NFL coach. It is not that way in college football. No player is bigger than the program. I think Tennessee did the complete right thing. And I think Nico Emeagwala and his camp did not think this was going to happen. They were in complete shock, and they're going to be in trouble if their options are limited. That wraps up this episode of Sloppy Saturdays. We're going to be covering this when Nico Emeagwala possibly goes to a different program. And that wraps up this episode of Sloppy Saturdays. And